Hi, my name's Sophia, and last Tuesday night my mother looked me straight in the eye and screamed, "Your sister is our real daughter." I packed my bags that very moment, ready to disappear forever. But the next morning I discovered something. That changed everything. Something they never wanted me to find. And what I did next? Well, let's just say some secrets are too powerful to stay buried. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in Portland, the kind where the mist clings to your skin and makes everything feel heavy and damp. The Douglas fir trees outside our Victorian house swayed in the wind, their branches scratching against my bedroom window like fingers trying to get in. I had just finished my nursing shift at Oregon Health Sciences University Hospital, where I'd been working double shifts for the past 6 months to help pay for my younger sister Emma's private art school tuition. Emma. Golden-haired, blue-eyed. Emma with her perfect smile and effortless charm. At 19, she was everything our parents, Margaret and David Chen Rodriguez, had ever dreamed of in a daughter. Artistic, social, the kind of girl who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. Meanwhile, I was 26, exhausted, wearing scrubs that smelled faintly of antiseptic, with dark circles under my eyes from working nights to support a family that barely acknowledged my existence. I pushed open the front door of our family, home on Hawthorne Boulevard, my keys jingling against the ceramic bowl Mom kept on the entry table. The house smelled like her signature lavender and eucalyptus candles, mixed with the aroma of something expensive cooking in the kitchen. Probably another one of her elaborate dinners for Emma's art school friends or potential gallery connections. "Sophia, is that you?" Mom's voice floated from the living room, sharp and expectant. "Yeah, it's me," I called back, dropping my hospital bag by the stairs. My feet ached, and all I wanted was to grab a quick shower and maybe heat up some leftover soup before collapsing into bed. Tomorrow was another 12-hour shift, and I had exactly 7 hours to sleep if I was lucky. But as I walked toward the kitchen, I heard voices. Multiple voices. Emma's melodic laugh mixed with deeper tones I didn't recognize. I paused in the hallway, suddenly aware of how I must look. Hair pulled back in a messy bun, exhausted, wearing my old Columbia University sweatshirt that had seen better days. The living room was transformed. Mom had set out her good china, the delicate porcelain set she'd inherited from her grandmother. Soft jazz played from the vintage record player Dad had restored last year, and the lighting was dimmed just enough to create that perfect ambiance she was famous for among her social circle. Emma sat curled up on the velvet sofa, wearing a flowing, bohemian dress that probably cost more than I made in a week, surrounded by 3 people I'd never seen before. "Sophia!" Emma jumped up when she saw me, but there was something forced about her enthusiasm. "Come meet my friends from the gallery. This is Marcus, he's a curator. And Vivian, she's a collector. And this is James. He's thinking about featuring my work in his upcoming exhibition." I managed a tired smile and a small wave. "Nice to meet you all. I'm Emma's sister." "Oh, we've heard so much about Emma's family," Vivian said, her voice cultured and smooth. She was probably in her 50s, wearing what looked like designer everything, from her silk blouse to her obviously expensive jewelry. "Margaret was just telling us about Emma's incredible journey as an artist. Such dedication, such raw talent. You must be so proud to have such a gifted sister." Before I could respond, Mom appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray of what looked like professionally catered appetizers. Her hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite it being nearly 9 in the evening. She wore her favorite black dress, the one she reserved for important occasions. "Oh, Sophia, you're home," she said, but her tone suggested my presence was more of an interruption than a welcome addition. "We're having a little gathering for Emma's career. Why don't you go upstairs and get cleaned up? You look exhausted." The dismissal stung, but it wasn't unusual. I'd grown accustomed to being the background character in my own family's story. Actually, I was just going to grab some dinner and head to bed. I have another long shift tomorrow. Always working, Dad chimed in from his chair by the fireplace, but he didn't look up from his tablet. Sophia's our little workaholic, very responsible, very practical. Not artistic like Emma, but someone has to keep their feet on the ground, right? The comment hung in the air like smoke from Mom's expensive candles. I felt my cheeks flush, not from embarrassment, but from the familiar ache of being reduced to nothing more than the practical daughter. The one who worked double shifts, while Emma pursued her dreams. The one who paid bills while Emma painted masterpieces. The one who kept her feet on the ground while Emma soared. Marcus, the curator, leaned forward with interest. "What kind of work do you do, Sophia?" "I'm a registered nurse at OHSU. I work primarily in the emergency department," I replied, trying to inject some pride into my voice. "How noble," Vivian said with the kind of smile that felt more like pity than admiration. "Healthcare workers are so essential, very practical career choice." There was that word again. Practical. Like being practical was somehow less valuable than being artistic. Like saving lives was somehow less important than creating beautiful things. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Emma shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. Sophia's really good at her job. She works really hard. "Of course she does," Mom said, but her attention was already back on the gallery people. "Now, James, you were saying about the exhibition space?" Emma's pieces would look stunning in that east-facing room with all the natural light. And just like that, I was invisible again. I stood there for another few minutes, listening to them discuss Emma's bright future, her upcoming shows, her artistic vision. Nobody asked about my day, about the lives I'd helped save, about the family I'd comforted after their father died of a heart attack, about the teenager I'd helped stabilize after a car accident. Nobody seemed to notice when I quietly slipped, away toward the kitchen. The kitchen was a disaster zone of expensive ingredients and dirty dishes. Apparently, Mom had cooked an elaborate meal for Emma's guests, but hadn't bothered to clean up afterward. I opened the refrigerator, hoping to find some leftovers, but there was nothing except ingredients for tomorrow's breakfast and a few bottles of the expensive wine Dad liked to serve to important guests. My stomach growled loudly, reminding me that I'd skipped lunch during my shift because we'd had 3 trauma cases come in simultaneously. I grabbed a banana and a container of yogurt, hardly a proper dinner after a 12-hour day, but it would have to do. As I was eating my meager meal standing at the kitchen counter, I heard Mom's voice carrying from the living room, slightly louder than before. The wine was clearly having an effect. "Emma has always been our shining star," she was saying. "From the time she was little, we knew she was special. Different from other children. She had this light about her, this creative energy that just drew people in. David and I have always said that some children are born to be extraordinary, and Emma is definitely one of those children." I paused mid-bite, my stomach clenching for reasons that had nothing to do with hunger. "And Sophia?" James asked. I could hear the polite curiosity in his voice. There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause that seemed to stretch on forever. "Well," Mom said finally, and I could hear the wine loosening her tongue. "Sophia is different. She's always been the serious one, the worker, very focused on practical things. Not really the creative type, you know? We've always said that Emma got all the artistic genes in the family. Sophia got the practical ones." "Some families are like that," Vivian agreed. "One child gets the talent, the other gets the work ethic. Both are valuable in their own way." "Exactly," Mom continued, and I could hear her warming to the topic. "Emma is our artist, our dreamer. She's the one who's going to make something beautiful in this world. Sophia, she's more like the support system. Very reliable, very steady. The kind of person who keeps everything running behind the scenes while the real stars shine. My hand started shaking. The yogurt container slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the marble countertop. Behind the scenes, support system, not the real star. Mom, I heard Emma say quietly, maybe we should talk about something else. But Mom was on a roll now, the wine and the attention from these important art world people making her more talkative than usual. Oh, it's fine, sweetheart. Sophia knows her place in this family. She's always been very realistic about her limitations. Not everyone can be extraordinary after all. Someone has to be ordinary, and Sophia has always been comfortable with that role. Ordinary, limitations, comfortable with that role. I stood frozen in the kitchen, listening to my mother reduce my entire existence to a footnote in Emma's story. Every double shift I'd worked, every bill I'd helped pay, every sacrifice I'd made, all of it dismissed as the ordinary support work that someone had to do while the real daughter lived her extraordinary life. The truth is, Mom continued, her voice taking on that confessional tone that wine sometimes brought out, Emma has always been easy to love. She's beautiful, talented, charming. People gravitate toward her naturally. She makes us proud just by being herself. Sophia. Well, Sophia has to work much harder for that kind of recognition. She's had to earn her place through effort rather than natural gifts. Earn her place in her own family. I picked up the yogurt container with trembling hands and threw it in the trash, my appetite completely gone. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my ribs from the inside. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to get away from the sound of my mother's voice explaining to strangers why one daughter was a star and the other was just ordinary. I started toward the back door, thinking I'd step out onto the deck for a few minutes to collect myself, when I heard footsteps behind me. Sophia? Emma's voice was soft, concerned. Are you okay? I turned around to face my sister. This beautiful, talented, beloved girl who had never asked to be the favorite, but who wore the role as naturally as she wore her flowing dresses and artistic scarves. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. It was a long day at work. Emma frowned, studying my face with those artist's eyes that saw too much. Mom didn't mean anything by what she said. She's just... You know how she gets when she's trying to impress people. She exaggerates everything. Does she? I asked quietly. Or was she just being honest for once? Sophia, don't say that. You know Mom loves you. Does she? The question came out sharper than I intended. When was the last time she introduced me as her daughter without immediately explaining what I do for work or how practical I am? When was the last time she talked about me the way she talks about you? Emma opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out, because we both knew the answer. It's okay, I said, softening my tone. I didn't want to make Emma feel bad about something that wasn't her fault. I'm happy for you, Em. I really am. You deserve all the opportunities coming your way. You're incredibly talented. But so are you, Emma said fiercely. What you do at the hospital, the lives you save, the people you help, that's just as important as anything I create. I smiled, and for the first time in hours it felt genuine. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. But as I looked at my sister's concerned face, I realized something that made my chest tighten all over again. Emma felt sorry for me. This beautiful, beloved girl who had everything handed to her on a silver platter felt pity for her older sister, who had to work double shifts just to feel valuable. I think I'm going to head upstairs, I said. Let Mom know I said goodnight to everyone. Are you sure you're okay? I'm sure. Enjoy your evening, Em. You deserve to celebrate. I made it halfway up the stairs before I heard Mom's voice again, slightly slurred now, but still carrying clearly through the house. The thing about Emma is that she's always been special. From the day she was born, David and I knew she was different. She was this perfect, beautiful baby who never cried, never caused any problems. She just seemed to understand that she was meant for something bigger than ordinary life. I stopped walking. Now, Sophia, Mom continued. Sophia was, well, she was a difficult baby. Colicky, demanding, always needing something. And as she got older, she just became more and more serious, more worried about everything. Always. Asking questions, always concerned about money or grades or what other people thought. Emma never worried about any of that. She just trusted that everything would work out because she knew she was special. My hand gripped the banister so tightly my knuckles went white. I remember when Sophia was about 8 and Emma was 5. Mom went on, clearly in full storytelling mode now. Sophia came to me crying because some kids at school had been mean to her, and she wanted me to call their parents. But Emma, even at 5 years old, if someone was mean to her, she would just laugh and walk away because she knew it didn't matter what they thought. She had this confidence, this inner knowledge that she was meant for greatness. What a remarkable child, Vivian murmured. She really is. And the thing is, we've always known that Emma was our real daughter in the truest sense. Not biologically. They're both our biological children, of course, but emotionally, spiritually, Emma is who we dreamed of when we imagined having a daughter. She's everything we hoped for in a child. The words hit me like a physical blow. Our real daughter. Emma was their real daughter. Sophia is family, of course. But Emma is our heart. Emma is the daughter we always pictured when we talked about our future, about our legacy. She's the one who will carry on everything we've tried to build, everything we believe in about art and beauty and living a meaningful life. I sank down onto the step, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. Family, but not their heart. A daughter, but not their real daughter. I probably shouldn't be saying all this, Mom continued with a little laugh. But the wine is making me sentimental. And it's just so wonderful to see Emma getting the recognition she deserves. She's worked so hard for this moment. Worked so hard. Emma, who had never held a job, who had her tuition paid for, who had never worried about money, or bills or practical concerns because someone else, someone ordinary, was handling all of that behind the scenes. I stood up slowly and walked the rest of the way to my room, closing the door softly behind me. My room was small, practical, furnished with hand-me-downs and pieces I'd bought second-hand. It was nothing like Emma's room, which Mom had redecorated twice in the past 3 years to better reflect her artistic evolution. I sat on my bed and looked around at my ordinary space with my ordinary things. My nursing textbook stacked on the desk, my work schedule pinned to the bulletin board, my scrubs hanging in the closet, ready for tomorrow's shift. Everything practical, everything functional, everything designed to support and serve rather than to shine. My phone buzzed with a text from my supervisor at the hospital. Thanks for covering for Janet today. The Peterson family specifically asked me to thank you for how you handled their father's case. You made a difference today. I stared at the message for a long time. I made a difference. Not because I was special or extraordinary or naturally gifted, but because I had worked hard to develop skills that helped people in their darkest moments. Because I had chosen to dedicate my life to something meaningful, even if it wasn't beautiful or artistic or impressive to gallery curators. But apparently, that didn't make me the real daughter. I could still hear the party going on downstairs. Emma's laughter mixing with the voices of people who understood her value, who saw her worth, who recognized her as someone special. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my practical room, wondering when I had become nothing more than the supporting character in my own family's story. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from my coworker Maria, a picture of the card the Peterson family had left for me at the nurse's station. "To the angel nurse who held our hands when we couldn't hold each other's," it read. "You'll never know how much your kindness meant to us." I looked at that card for a long time, thinking about the difference between being someone's real daughter and being someone's angel nurse. Thinking about the difference between being loved for who you naturally are and being valued for who you choose to become. Downstairs, Mom was probably still explaining to Emma's friends how some children are born extraordinary, while others have to settle for being ordinary. How some daughters are hearts and dreams, while others are just practical support systems. But here in my ordinary room, holding a card from people whose lives I had touched, I wondered if maybe there was more than one way to be real. More than one way to matter. More than one way to be someone's everything. Even if I would never be my mother's. The party downstairs grew louder as the evening wore on, Emma's success being celebrated by people who understood the value of art and beauty and creative vision. And upstairs, I fell asleep holding a card from strangers who understood the value of compassion and skill and showing up when people needed you most. Both kinds of value were real, but only one of them made you the real daughter. And I was finally beginning to understand which one I was. I woke up at 4:47 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. For a moment, I thought it was my alarm, but when I reached for it with groggy fingers, I saw 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My heart immediately jumped to the worst-case scenario. Had there been an emergency at the FI? Hospital? Had someone from my unit been in an accident? But as my eyes adjusted to the blue glow of the screen, I realized none of the messages were from work. They were all from family members, friends, and numbers I didn't even recognize. The first text I opened was from my cousin Rebecca in Seattle. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I can't believe your mom posted that. Are you okay?" "Posted what?" With trembling fingers, I scrolled through the messages. My Aunt Linda from Sacramento. "Honey, I don't know what got into Margaret, but that video is not okay." My college roommate Jessica. "Girl, call me. I saw what happened and I'm furious." Even my high school friend Tyler, who I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. "Sophia, just wanted you to know that video doesn't represent who you are. You're amazing." "Video? What video?" I opened Facebook and my blood turned to ice. There, at the top of my feed, was a video posted by my mother at 11:43 p.m. the night before. The thumbnail showed our living room, Emma sitting prettily on the sofa surrounded by her art world friends. The video had been viewed 847 times and shared 23 times. The caption read, "So proud of our real daughter Emma and her incredible artistic achievements." Some children are born to shine, while others are meant to support from the shadows. Tonight, we celebrate true talent. Proud mom, da, artist family, da, real daughter. My hands started shaking as I pressed play. The video began with Mom's voice behind the camera, clearly tipsy but trying to sound sophisticated. "I just had to capture this moment with Emma and her gallery friends. This is what dreams coming true looks like, people." The camera panned across the room, showing Emma looking embarrassed but beautiful, the art collectors nodding approvingly, and then my stomach dropped. There was a brief shot of me, in the kitchen doorway, looking exhausted and out of place in my old sweatshirt. Mom's voice continued cheerfully, and there's Sophia in the background, doing what she does best, staying out of the way while the real magic happens. Someone off camera, I think it was Vivian, could be heard saying, "It must be nice to have such different daughters. One artistic, one practical." "Oh yes," Mom replied, zooming in on Emma's face. "Emma is our heart, our real daughter in every way that matters. She's the one who makes us proud, the one who represents everything we dreamed of in a child." Sophia is, well, Sophia is family too, of course, but Emma is our true daughter, our shining star. The video continued for another 2 minutes, with Mom gushing about Emma's talent while occasionally panning to show me cleaning up in the kitchen, completely unaware I was being filmed and narrated like some kind of sad documentary about family dynamics. I watched it 3 times, each viewing making me feel smaller and more invisible. But what made it worse were the comments. Hundreds of them. Margaret, this is your daughter too. How can you say such hurtful things? Sarah Martinez, my old nursing school friend. As someone who has worked with Sophia at the hospital, I can tell you she is extraordinary. She saves lives daily while you're bragging about art shows. Dr. Jennifer Kim, my supervisor. This is disgusting. Sophia deserves so much better than this family. Rachel Thompson, who I didn't even know, but mixed in with the supportive comments were others that made my chest tighten. Well, someone has to be the ordinary one in every family. At least she's being realistic about her kids' different abilities. Not everyone can be special. Some people are just meant to work hard and support others. I closed the app and stumbled to the bathroom, where I threw up everything I'd eaten the night before. As I knelt on the cold tile floor, I realized that my mother hadn't just said those things about me to a small group of strangers in our living room. She had broadcast them to the entire world, tagged me in the post, and made sure everyone we knew could see exactly how she really felt about her 2 daughters. My phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Sophia, oh my God. I am so sorry, she said before I could even say hello. I had no idea Mom was recording. I tried to get her to delete it, but she said it was already out there, and people were congratulating her on being honest about family dynamics. She thinks she was being honest, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She's not thinking. Clearly, she had way too much wine, and those gallery people were just encouraging her to talk. I think she got caught up in trying to impress them. Emma paused. But Sophia, you have to know that's not how I see you. You're not ordinary. You're not just a support system. You're incredible at what you do. But she's not wrong, is she? I said quietly. I am the practical one. I am the one who works behind the scenes while you shine. I am the one who pays bills while you create beautiful things. Maybe she was just saying out loud what everyone already knows. That's not true, and you know it. What you do matters. The lives you save matter. The way you show up for people matters. I wanted to believe her, but the video kept playing in my head. The casual way Mom had referred to Emma as their real daughter while I was literally standing 15 feet away. The way she had described me as someone who stays out of the way while the real magic happens. After I hung up with Emma, I did something I had never done before in 6 years of working at OHSU. I called in sick. I couldn't face my colleagues, couldn't handle the possibility that they had seen the video, couldn't bear the thought of their pity or their questions. Instead, I drove to Powell Butte Nature Preserve, a place I used to go when I was younger and needed to think. It was barely dawn, and the trails were empty except for a few early morning joggers. I found my old spot by the small pond and sat, on a fallen log, watching the mist rise from the water as the sun came up. My phone continued to buzz with messages, but I ignored them all except one from my charge nurse, Patricia. Saw the video. Want you to know that woman doesn't speak for the rest of us who know your worth. Take the day. Come back when you're ready. We need you here. That message broke something open in my chest. Patricia was a tough, no-nonsense woman who didn't give out compliments easily. For her to reach out, to acknowledge what had happened, to tell me I was needed, it meant more than she could possibly know. As I sat by that pond, I started thinking about all the patients I had cared for over the years. Mrs. Williams, the elderly woman who had come in after a fall, scared and alone, who had gripped my hand and said I was the first person to treat her like she mattered in months. Marcus, the teenager who had overdosed and woke up crying, who told me I was the reason he decided to try rehab. The countless families I had sat with during the worst moments of their lives, holding space for their grief and fear and hope. To those people, I wasn't the ordinary daughter or the practical support system. I was the person who showed up when they needed someone most. I was the difference between feeling alone and feeling seen. I was the reason some of them made it through their darkest hours. But somehow, in my own family, none of that mattered. In my own home, I was just the background character whose main purpose was to make Emma's light shine brighter by comparison. Around noon, I drove to a small cafe in the Alberta district, one of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. I needed to be around people, but not people who knew me, not people who might have seen the video. I ordered a large coffee and sat in the corner with a book I wasn't really reading. That's when I overheard a conversation at the table next to me. Two women, probably in their 30s, were talking about their families. "I swear, my sister has always been the golden child," one was saying. "Everything comes so easily to her. Looks, career, relationships. Meanwhile, I'm over here working my ass off just trying to get noticed." "But you're a teacher," her friend replied. "You literally shape young minds every day. That's incredible." Try telling that to my parents. When we're all together, it's like I disappear. Everything is about Rachel and her latest promotion or Rachel's new boyfriend or Rachel's whatever. I love my sister, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be the one they brag about. I felt a chill of recognition. This stranger was living my exact life, just with different details. "You know what I realize, though?" the teacher continued. "The kids I teach, they see me. Really see me. I had a student last year who was struggling with her parents' divorce, and she told me I was the only adult who made her feel like her feelings mattered. That meant more to me than any amount of parental approval ever could." Her friend nodded. "Maybe the people who truly matter are the ones who see your value, not the ones who are supposed to." I sat there listening to this stranger articulate something I had been feeling but couldn't put into words. Maybe my worth wasn't determined by whether my mother saw me as her real daughter. Maybe it was determined by the patients who trusted me with their lives, the colleagues who relied on my skills, the people who were better off because I existed. But even as I tried to convince myself of this, I couldn't shake the hurt. Because at the end of the day, every child wants to be their parent's favorite. Every daughter wants to be the one her mother brags about, the one who makes her parents' faces light up when they talk about her. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Sophia. This is Dr. Martinez from the pediatric ICU. I saw that awful video your mother posted, and I wanted you to know that it's complete garbage. Last month, when my son was in the ER after his bike accident, you were the nurse who took care of him. You made him laugh when he was scared, and you made me feel like I wasn't falling apart as a parent. You are someone's real daughter. You're a daughter to every family you've helped heal. Don't let anyone make you forget that." I started crying right there in the cafe. Not the quiet, dignified tears I had been holding back all morning, but the ugly, overwhelming sobs of someone who had been holding their breath for years and finally had permission to exhale. The barista, a young woman with purple hair and kind eyes, came over with a box of tissues. "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "I'm having a really hard day," I managed to say. "I get it," she said simply. "Sometimes we all need a good cry in public. No judgment here." After I composed myself, I decided to do something I had never done before. I drove to my parents' house in the middle of the day, unannounced, while they were both home. Mom answered the door in her yoga clothes, her hair perfectly styled even, for a casual Wednesday afternoon. Her face immediately shifted into that expression I knew so well, the look that said my presence was an inconvenience. "Sophia? What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work?" "We need to talk," I said, stepping past her into the house. Dad was in his home office, probably working on one of his consulting projects. Emma was at school. It was just the three of us, maybe for the first time in years. About what? Mom asked, though we both knew exactly what. About the video you posted last night. About calling Emma your real daughter while I was standing 10 feet away. About broadcasting to the entire world that you see me as nothing more than ordinary support staff in my own family. Mom's face flushed. Sophia, I was tipsy. I didn't mean— You meant every word, I interrupted. And you know what? Maybe some of it is even true. Maybe Emma is more naturally gifted than I am. Maybe she is easier to love. Maybe I am just the practical daughter who works behind the scenes. But here's what you don't seem to understand, Mom. That doesn't make me less valuable. Of course you're valuable. When? I asked. When have you ever made me feel valuable? When have you ever introduced me to someone without immediately explaining that I'm the practical one, or the hard worker, or the one who keeps everyone grounded? When have you ever talked about me the way you talk about Emma? Mom opened her mouth, then closed it, because we both knew the answer was never. I work 60-hour weeks, I continued. I've helped pay for Emma's tuition, Dad's medical bills. When he had that kidney stone surgery, the roof repairs on this house. I've been supporting this family financially and emotionally for years. And last night you told a room full of strangers that Emma is your heart while I'm just family. You're being dramatic. Am I? Because the video is still up, Mom. It's been shared 23 times. Hundreds of people have seen you explain why one of your daughters matters and the other one doesn't. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. What's going on? Your wife posted a video last night calling Emma your real daughter, while describing me as ordinary background support, I said, without looking away from Mom's face. Dad's expression shifted. Margaret, you didn't. It wasn't like that, Mom said defensively. I was trying to celebrate Emma's achievements. I was proud of her success. And you couldn't do that without diminishing me? I asked. You couldn't celebrate one daughter without explaining why the other one doesn't measure up? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Dad spoke. Sophia, you know we're proud of you too. Your work at the hospital is important. Important, I repeated. But not brag-worthy. Not Facebook post-worthy. Not real daughter-worthy. That's not what I meant, Mom said quietly. Then what did you mean? Because I've watched that video 4 times now, and it's pretty clear. Emma is your heart, your pride, your real daughter. I'm just the practical one who stays out of the way while the real magic happens. The words hung in the air, and for the first time in my adult life, my parents had no response. No explanation, no justification, no attempt to minimize what had been said. I want you to take the video down, I said finally. Sophia, take it down, Mom. And I want you to think about what kind of mother posts something like that about one of her children. What kind of person does that to someone they claim to love? I turned to leave, but stopped at the door. You know what the saddest part is? I would have celebrated Emma's success right alongside you. I always have. But you were so busy explaining why she's special that you couldn't see I was already proud of her too. You were so focused on making sure everyone knew she was your favorite that you forgot I was your daughter too. I walked out of that house feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I had finally said what needed to be said. Heavier because I had confirmed what I had always suspected. In my mother's eyes, I would never be enough. But as I drove home, something else was growing alongside the hurt. A sense of clarity I had never experienced before. Because, for the first time, I wasn't questioning my own worth based on my mother's inability to see it. I was questioning why I had spent so many years begging for scraps of approval from someone who had never learned how to love both of her daughters equally. My phone buzzed with another message from Patricia. Whatever you decide about tomorrow, know that you have a place here where you're valued for exactly who you are. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Instead of checking my phone for the usual barrage of messages about the video, I got dressed in my favorite professional outfit, a navy blue blazer and crisp white shirt that made me feel powerful, and drove straight to the hospital. But I wasn't going to my usual unit. I was going to the administrative offices on the 7th floor, a place I had only visited once before when I was hired 6 years ago. Dr. Sarah Chen, the chief nursing officer, looked surprised when her assistant announced my unscheduled visit. She was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect without demanding it. "Sophia, please sit down. Is everything all right? Patricia mentioned you needed yesterday off for a family emergency." I had rehearsed this conversation during my drive, but sitting across from Dr. Chen, I felt my carefully planned words rearrange themselves into something more honest. "Dr. Chen, I need to ask you about the nurse educator position that was posted last month, the one for the pediatric trauma unit." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's quite a career shift from emergency nursing. What's prompted this interest?" I took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about impact lately, about the difference between being valued for what you do versus being valued for who you are. In the ER, I save lives every day, but I want to do more than that. I want to teach others how to save lives. I want to create a ripple effect that extends beyond my individual patients. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair, studying me with the kind of attention I rarely received at home. "Go on." "Yesterday, I received a message from a parent whose child I treated in the ER. She said I didn't just treat her son's injuries. I taught her how to advocate for his care, how to ask the right questions, how to be his voice when he couldn't speak for himself. That's what I want to do on a larger scale. I want to train the next generation of nurses to see beyond the medical charts and connect with the human beings behind them." "That's exactly what we need in that position," Dr. Chen said slowly. "But I have to ask. This is a significant change, and the timing seems sudden. Is there something else going on?" I hesitated, then decided that if I was going to advocate for myself professionally, I needed to start with complete honesty. I had a wake-up call recently about my own self-worth. I realized I've been waiting for other people to recognize my value instead of stepping into it myself. This position isn't about running away from anything. It's about running toward the person I'm meant to become. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "I've been watching your work for years, Sophia. Your patient satisfaction scores are consistently among the highest in the department. Your colleagues trust you with their most difficult cases. The residents specifically request you for their training rotations because you have a gift for teaching in high-pressure situations." I felt my chest tighten with emotion. These were things I had never heard before, recognition I had never received in any formal way. "The position requires a master's degree in nursing education," she continued. "Do you have plans to pursue that?" "I've been accepted to the online program at Johns Hopkins for fall semester," I said, surprising myself with the admission. I had applied on a whim 6 months ago, but never seriously considered following through. I deferred enrollment because I wasn't sure I could handle school while working full-time. "What's changed?" "I've learned that the only person who can limit my potential is me, and I'm done doing that." Dr. Chen smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. "The position doesn't start until September, which would give you time to begin your graduate coursework." "Are you serious about this, Sophia? Because if you are, I'd like to fast-track your application process." I've never been more serious about anything in my life. An hour later, I walked out of that office with a formal interview scheduled for the following week. and a reading list of current research in pediatric nursing education. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of just working hard to stay in place. But the real test came that evening when I returned home to find Emma sitting on my apartment steps, her eyes red from crying. "Sophia, thank God you're here. Something terrible happened today." My protective instincts kicked in immediately. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "It's not that kind of terrible," Emma said, wiping her nose with a tissue. "It's about the video, about what Mom said." I unlocked my apartment door and Emma followed me inside, collapsing onto my small sofa like she belonged there. "3 different galleries called today to cancel meetings," she said quietly. "One of them said they couldn't work with artists from families with questionable values. Another one said they were concerned about the family dynamics affecting my professional reputation." I felt a surge of anger on Emma's behalf, even though part of me couldn't help thinking that maybe now she would understand what it felt like to be judged based on our mother's words. "Emma, I'm so sorry, that's not fair to you." "But that's not even the worst part," she continued. "The worst part is that I watched that video again today, really watched it, and I realized that Mom wasn't just being thoughtless or tipsy. She meant every word she said about you, and I've been letting it happen for years." I sat down across from her, not sure where this conversation was heading. "Do you remember when you helped me move into my first apartment junior year?" Emma asked. "You spent your entire weekend off helping me pack and clean and set everything up. And when Mom came to see the place, the first thing she said was how proud she was that I was becoming so independent and responsible." "Emma, let me finish. She never mentioned that you were the one who taught me how to budget for groceries, or that you were the one who showed me how to set up utilities, or that you paid my security deposit because my financial aid hadn't come through yet. She just took credit for raising such a capable daughter." The memory stung because I had felt proud helping Emma navigate her first taste of independence. I hadn't expected credit, but I also hadn't expected to be completely erased from the narrative. "I've been thinking about it all day," Emma continued, "and I can't remember a single time when Mom gave you credit for anything. Not when you graduated nursing school summa cum laude. Not when you got the job at OHSU. Not when you worked overtime to help pay for Dad's surgery. She always finds a way to make it about something else." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked gently. Emma's face crumpled. "Because I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I let you become invisible in our family. I'm ashamed that I enjoyed being the favorite so much that I never questioned why there had to be an unfavorite. I'm ashamed that it took my career being threatened for me to really see what Mom has been doing to you." The honesty in her voice broke something open in my chest. I had expected Emma to defend our parents, to minimize what had happened, to ask me to forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. "I called Mom today," Emma said. "I told her she needed to take down the video and post an apology. Do you know what she said?" I shook my head. "She said that you were being overly sensitive and that I was being manipulated by the cancel culture mob. She said the video was meant to celebrate my achievements, and if you couldn't handle that, it said more about your insecurities than her parenting." The words landed like physical blows, but I wasn't surprised. This was exactly how I had expected Mom to respond: deflection, minimization, and somehow making it my fault. "So, I did something I've never done before," Emma continued. "I told her that if she didn't take down the video and apologize to you publicly, I would decline every gallery opportunity that came my way and find a different career path entirely." I stared at my sister in shock. "Emma, you can't do that. Your art is everything to you." "No, it's not," she said firmly. "My art is important to me, but it's not more important than my sister. It's not more important than doing what's right. And it's definitely not more important than standing up to a mother who has spent 26 years teaching me that your worth is conditional, while mine is guaranteed." What did she say? Emma's laugh was bitter. She hung up on me, then she called back an hour later and said that if I was going to betray the family like you did, maybe she had been wrong about which daughter was really special after all. We sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of our mother's cruelty. She was so committed to her hierarchy of daughters that she was willing to turn on either of us the moment we challenged her narrative. I've been thinking, Emma said slowly, about what it means to be someone's real daughter. And I think Mom has it backwards. A real daughter isn't the one who makes you look good in front of other people. A real daughter isn't the one who never questions you or challenges you or forces you to examine your behavior. Then what is a real daughter? I asked. A real daughter is someone who loves you enough to tell you when you're wrong. Someone who refuses to let you become a person you shouldn't be. Someone who holds you accountable because they believe you're capable of being better. Emma reached across the space between us and took my hand. You've been more of a real daughter to our parents than I ever have, Sophia. You've worked to support them, you've sacrificed for them, and you've held this family together while I got to be the shiny decoration they showed off to their friends. That's not your fault, Em. You didn't ask to be the favorite. No, but I accepted it without question. I let you carry the weight while I got to float above it all. That ends now. What do you mean? Emma pulled out her phone and opened her Instagram account. I'm going to post something, and I want you to see it before I hit share. She handed me the phone, and I read her draft post. I need to address something publicly. Yesterday, my mother posted a video calling me her real daughter, while referring to my sister as ordinary and support staff. That video has now been shared hundreds of times, and I can't let it stand without speaking up. My sister Sophia is extraordinary. She's a registered nurse who works in one of the busiest emergency departments in Portland, saving lives and comforting families during their worst moments. She's worked double shifts to help pay for my education, covered family expenses when our parents couldn't, and has been the backbone of our family for years while I got to pursue my dreams. She's not ordinary. She's not support staff. She's not less valuable because her gifts are different from mine. She's a healer, a teacher, and the most selfless person I know. I'm embarrassed that it took seeing galleries cancel on me for me to fully understand the weight of my mother's words. But I'm not embarrassed to say that I would rather have no career at all than build one on the foundation of my sister's diminishment. To everyone who has shared or commented on that video, my sister's worth is not up for debate. She doesn't need anyone's approval to be extraordinary. She already is. And to my sister, I'm sorry it took me this long to say this publicly. I love you, I see you, and I'm proud to be your sister. I looked up at Emma through tears. I didn't realize I was crying. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Because someone needs to tell the truth about who you really are, and if our mother won't do it, then I will. Emma hit share before I could protest further. Within minutes, her post started receiving likes and comments. I watched the numbers climb as people who knew both of us began responding with heart emojis and supportive messages. But the comment that made me catch my breath was from Dr. Jennifer Kim, my supervisor. This is the Sophia we know and love. Thank you for setting the record straight, Emma. Your sister is a treasure. There's something else, Emma said, pulling up another screen on her phone. I've been looking into nursing scholarships for graduate students. There's one specifically for pediatric nursing education, and the deadline is next week. I want to help you apply. Emma, you don't need to— Stop, she said firmly. Stop deflecting. Stop minimizing. Stop acting like you don't deserve good things. You're going back to school. You're going to become the nurse educator you're meant to be. And I'm going to help make it happen because that's what sisters do for each other. I looked at this beautiful, talented woman who had always been everything to our parents, and I realized that she was choosing to be something more important. She was choosing to be my sister. Okay, I said quietly. Let's apply for the scholarship. As we spent the next few hours working on my application, something shifted between us. For the first time in our lives, we weren't the favorite daughter and the forgotten daughter. We were just two women, supporting each other, building something together that had nothing to do with our parents' approval or disapproval. Around midnight, as Emma was getting ready to leave, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Emma and I looked at each other. "You don't have to answer," she said. But I did answer, because I was no longer afraid of my mother's words. I was no longer willing to be diminished by someone who had never learned how to love both of her daughters equally. "Hello, Mom." "Sophia, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Emma's post is causing problems for the whole family." "What kind of problems?" "People are questioning my parenting. They're saying I'm a terrible mother. This needs to stop." I looked at Emma, who was listening intently. "Mom, are you calling to apologize for what you said in that video?" There was a long pause. "I'm calling to ask you to fix this situation before it gets any worse." "Fix what situation? The one where you publicly called your daughter ordinary and referred to her as background support? Or the one where people are finally seeing how you've treated me for years?" "You're being dramatic, Sophia. I never said you were ordinary." "Mom, the video is still up. I can quote you word for word if you'd like." Another pause. "Fine, I'll take down the video. But I need both of you to post something supportive about the family. Something that shows we're united." I felt Emma watching me, waiting to see how I would respond. For a moment I considered it. The old Sophia would have agreed, would have prioritized family peace over personal dignity, would have helped craft a narrative that protected everyone's feelings except her own. But that Sophia was gone. "No, Mom. I'm not going to help you spin this. I'm not going to pretend that what you said was okay, or that we're one big happy family. I'm done protecting you from the consequences of your own words. Sophia, I'm also not going to keep working myself to exhaustion to support a family that sees me as expendable. I'm going back to school. I'm pursuing the career I actually want. And I'm going to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not who they need me to be." I could hear my mother's sharp intake of breath. "So you're abandoning your family?" "No, Mom. I'm finally choosing myself. There's a difference." I hung up the phone and looked at Emma, who was smiling through her tears. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. 6 months later, I stood in front of a classroom filled with first-year nursing students at OHSU, wearing the navy blue blazer that had become my armor of confidence. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows, casting everything in golden light as I prepared to teach my favorite lesson: seeing the human behind the patient. "Who can tell me," I began, looking out at the eager faces, "what the most important tool in nursing is?" Hands shot up around the room. "Stethoscope," called out one student. "Critical thinking skills," suggested another. "Medication knowledge," offered a third. I smiled, remembering when I had given those same answers as a student myself. All excellent answers, but I want you to think deeper. What's the one thing that determines whether you'll be a good nurse or an extraordinary one? A young woman in the back row tentatively raised her hand. "Compassion?" "Close," I said, walking toward her. "But what enables compassion? What allows you to truly connect with someone who's scared, in pain, or facing the worst day of their life?" The room fell quiet as they pondered this. Finally, a student named Marcus spoke up. "Your own experiences with feeling invisible or misunderstood?" I stopped walking, genuinely impressed. "Exactly. Your ability to recognize your own worth, especially when others couldn't see it, becomes the foundation for helping others feel seen and valued in their most vulnerable moments." This had become the cornerstone of my teaching philosophy over the past months. Every lesson somehow circled back to the importance of understanding your own value so you could recognize it in others. It wasn't just about medical procedures or clinical protocols. It was about human connection and the healing power of being truly witnessed. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Saw the article in Nursing today about your new trauma-informed care curriculum. Coffee later to celebrate? The article had been a surprise. Dr. Chen had submitted my work on integrating emotional intelligence into pediatric nursing education to a national nursing journal, and they'd featured it as their cover story. The headline read, "From Bedside to Classroom, How One Nurse's Personal Journey is Revolutionizing Patient Care Education." Reading that article had been surreal. There, in black and white, was my professional photo alongside quotes from colleagues describing me as innovative, deeply insightful, and a natural teacher who transforms how students think about nursing. The girl who had once been called ordinary was now being recognized nationally for her contributions to the field. But the real validation had come from my students. Like Sarah, who had struggled with confidence until she realized that her experience growing up in poverty gave her unique insight into treating uninsured patients with dignity. Or David, who discovered that his anxiety about making mistakes actually made him more careful and thorough than his seemingly confident classmates. Professor Sophia? The voice belonged to Maria, one of my advanced students who was completing her pediatric rotation. I wanted to update you on the Peterson family case we discussed last week. I had been mentoring Maria through a particularly challenging situation involving a 7-year-old patient whose parents were going through a contentious divorce. The child had been acting out during medical procedures, and the staff was struggling to provide care effectively. I used the approach you suggested, Maria continued. Instead of trying to manage his behavior, I sat down at his eye level and asked him what was the scariest part about being in the hospital. He told me he was afraid his parents would forget about him because they were too busy fighting. And then? I asked if he wanted to help me take care of other kids who were scared too. I made him my special helper for the afternoon, and he went from being disruptive to being the most cooperative patient on the unit. His parents saw him being helpful and confident, and it actually brought them together for the first time in months. This was exactly why I had transitioned from bedside nursing to education. One conversation with Maria had potentially impacted not just that one child, but every future patient she would treat with the same thoughtful approach. That's beautiful work, Maria. You didn't just treat his medical condition, you treated his whole experience. That's what nursing excellence looks like. After class, I walked to my office to find a large bouquet of flowers waiting on my desk. The card read, "Thank you for showing me that being ordinary was never the problem. Accepting other people's definitions of ordinary was. Your biggest fan, Dr. Jennifer Kim." Dr. Kim had become an unexpected mentor over the past months. She had been the one to encourage me to apply for the teaching position, to pursue the nursing education master's program, and to submit my research for publication. She had also been the one to nominate me for the Outstanding New Educator Award I would be receiving at next month's National Nursing Conference. But perhaps most importantly, she had been the one to help me understand that my years of feeling undervalued at home had actually prepared me to recognize and nurture potential in others that they couldn't see in themselves. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Emma's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, Em. I got your text about coffee. Rain check? I have graduate classes tonight. Actually, that's not why I'm calling." Emma's voice sounded strange, excited but nervous. "Sophia, I need to tell you something important. Can you sit down?" I lowered myself into my desk chair, suddenly worried. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay. Remember how my gallery opportunities dried up after I posted that Instagram defending? You?" "Yes, and I still feel terrible about that." "Well, you shouldn't, because something amazing happened. One of the galleries that canceled on me was run by a woman named Catherine Walsh. She reached out to me yesterday, not about my art, but about you. About me? I don't understand. Catherine's daughter is a nursing student at Portland State. She saw the article about you in Nursing Today and told her mother about this incredible professor who was revolutionizing nursing education. When Catherine realized you were my sister, the sister from my Instagram post, she wanted to meet with both of us. I was still confused. Emma, why would a gallery owner want to meet with a nursing professor? Because she's not just a gallery owner. She's also on the board of the Catherine Walsh Foundation, which provides grants to healthcare innovations. Sophia, they want to fund your research. The words didn't compute at first. Fund my research? A $50,000 grant to develop your trauma-informed care curriculum for nursing schools nationwide. Catherine said your approach to teaching nurses to see patients as whole human beings instead of just medical cases could transform healthcare culture entirely. I gripped the phone tighter, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. Emma, are you serious? Dead serious, and there's more. She wants to commission me to create a series of art installations for children's hospitals that incorporate your principles of emotional healing alongside medical treatment. She said my experience defending my sister proved I understood the intersection of art, advocacy, and human dignity. I started crying right there in my office, overwhelmed by the beautiful circularity of it all. The family dynamic that had once made us compete for love was now creating opportunities for us to collaborate and amplify each other's work. So the galleries that dropped you for defending me led to an opportunity that's bigger than anything they could have offered? I asked through my tears. Exactly. And Sophia? Catherine specifically said that your ability to transform personal pain into professional purpose was what convinced her you were the right person to lead this kind of research. She said anyone can teach medical procedures, but it takes someone who has experienced invisibility to teach others how to truly see. After we hung up, I sat in my office as the sun set over Portland, thinking about the strange alchemy that had transformed the worst experience of my life into the foundation for everything good that had followed. Mom's cruel video had forced me to confront my own worth. Emma's defense of me had led to unexpected opportunities for both of us. My decision to pursue the teaching position had opened doors I hadn't even known existed. But the real transformation had been internal. I no longer measured my worth by whether my parents saw my value. I measured it by the lives I touched, the students I inspired, the colleagues who trusted me with their most vulnerable patients. My phone buzzed with an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Thank you from the Morrison family." I opened it to find a message from the parents of a child I had never met. Dear Professor Rodriguez, you don't know us, but our daughter was treated by one of your former students, Marcus Chen, at OHSU last month. Our 8-year-old Lily was in a car accident and was terrified of the hospital procedures she needed. Marcus told us that his professor had taught him to always ask patients what they were most afraid of, instead of just explaining what was going to happen to them. When he asked Lily this question, she said she was scared that the doctors would forget she was a real person and not just a broken body. Marcus spent 5 minutes telling Lily about all the things that made her special: her love of horses, her collection of smooth rocks, her dream of becoming a veterinarian. Then he asked if she could help him remember to see other patients as real people too. By the end of her treatment, Lily was telling other children in the pediatric ward about their favorite animals and hobbies. She turned her own scary experience into a way to help other kids feel seen and valued. We don't know what you taught Marcus in your classes, but it transformed our daughter's trauma into empowerment. Thank you for training nurses who see children as whole human beings. Gratefully, the Morrison family. I read the email 3 times, each time feeling more certain that this was exactly where I was meant to be. Not just teaching nursing skills, but teaching future healthcare providers to recognize the inherent worth in every person they encountered, especially when those people couldn't see their own value in that moment. That evening, I drove to Emma's new studio space in the Alberta Arts District. She had rented it with the advance from her Children's Hospital Commission, and the walls were covered with sketches and color studies for installations designed to help young patients feel brave and beautiful even in medical settings. "I have something to show you," she said, leading me to a covered easel in the corner. "This is the centerpiece for the pediatric trauma unit at Dernbecker Children's Hospital." She pulled away the cloth to reveal a stunning mixed media piece. At the center was a large mirror surrounded by hundreds of small, handwritten notes. As I looked closer, I could read fragments. "You are brave. Your feelings matter. You are more than your diagnosis. Someone sees your light." The mirror represents how children see themselves in the hospital, Emma explained. Often they only see their illness or injury, but the notes around it represent all the voices reminding them of their whole identity. Parents, nurses, doctors, siblings, friends. "Emma, this is incredible." "Look at the bottom corner," she said, pointing to a small plaque. I read, aloud, "Inspired by the nurses who see the person behind the patient, and dedicated to my sister Sophia, who taught me that being seen is a form of healing." We stood together in comfortable silence, looking at this beautiful thing Emma had created from our shared understanding of what it meant to feel invisible and what it took to help others feel seen. "I have news, too," I said finally. "I got a call from Johns Hopkins today. They want me to speak at their nursing leadership conference next spring about developing curricula that addresses healthcare providers' own emotional intelligence as a pathway to better patient care." "Sophia, that's huge! Johns Hopkins." "I know. A year ago, I was the nurse who worked double shifts and went home to a family that saw me as ordinary support staff. Now I'm being invited to share my ideas with nursing leaders from around the world." "What changed?" Emma asked, though I knew she already understood the answer. "I stopped waiting for other people to see my worth and started building a life that reflected it instead. I stopped trying to earn love from people who were determined not to give it, and started surrounding myself with people who could see my value clearly." We were interrupted by Emma's phone ringing. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted. "It's Mom," she said quietly. We hadn't spoken to our parents in months. After Mom refused to apologize for the video and instead demanded that we fix the situation, both Emma and I had made the difficult decision to step back from family contact until they were ready to acknowledge the harm that had been done. "Answer it," I said. "I'm ready." Emma put the phone on speaker. "Hi, Mom." "Emma, sweetheart, I've been thinking about our conversation from last month, and I want to talk to both of you girls. Is Sophia there?" "I'm here, Mom." There was a long pause. "I saw the article about you in that nursing magazine, Sophia. Mrs. Peterson from next door brought it over. She said her daughter is studying nursing and wants to take your classes." Another pause. I waited, curious to see what direction this conversation would take. I also saw Emma's art installation featured in Portland Monthly. They called it transformative and deeply healing. "Mom," Emma said gently, "is there something specific you wanted to say?" "I wanted to say that I've been talking to my therapist about family dynamics and communication patterns." This was unexpected. I had never known Mom to see a therapist. She helped me understand that sometimes when we're proud of one child's achievements, we accidentally diminish another child's worth. She said that wasn't intentional, but impact matters more than intention. I felt Emma's eyes on me, both of us waiting to see if this was leading toward an actual apology or just another attempt to minimize what had happened. "I want you both to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. Emma, your art is beautiful and meaningful. Sophia, your work is important and impactful. I should have been saying that all along instead of making it seem like there was only room for one successful daughter in this family." It wasn't the full apology I had hoped for, but it was acknowledgement. It was progress. "Thank you for saying that, Mom. I said carefully. It means a lot to hear. I took down that video months ago, but I know that doesn't undo the hurt it caused. I'm working on understanding why I said those things and how to do better going forward. We appreciate that, Emma said, and we hope you'll keep working on it. After we hung up, Emma and I looked at each other with cautious optimism. What do you think? She asked. I think it's a beginning, I said. But I'm not going to put my life on hold waiting for her to finish the journey. I'm going to keep building something beautiful with or without her approval. That sounds exactly right. As I drove home that night, I thought about the strange mathematics of family love and how sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who place the most conditions on their affection. But I also thought about how love can be found and built in unexpected places. In classrooms full of nursing students, in hospital units where colleagues become chosen family, in the space between sisters who choose to see and celebrate each other's worth. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, the nursing student who had helped little Lily feel seen during her hospital stay. Professor Rodriguez, thank you for teaching me that my job isn't just to heal bodies, but to help people remember their own wholeness. Your class changed how I see nursing and how I see myself. I smiled, thinking about how the girl who was once told she was ordinary had somehow learned to help others discover their own extraordinary potential. The girl who was called a burden had become someone others turned to when they needed to, feel their own worth reflected back to them. Tomorrow, I would stand in front of another classroom full of future nurses and teach them that their most powerful tool wasn't anything they could carry in their pockets. It was their ability to see and honor the full humanity in every person they encountered, starting with themselves. And next month, I would stand on a stage at a national conference and share my story about how feeling invisible had taught me to help others feel seen, how being dismissed had taught me the importance of validation, how surviving a family that couldn't love me equally had prepared me to create chosen families that could. The girl who was never the favorite daughter had become someone's favorite teacher, someone's trusted mentor, someone's reason to believe in their own potential. And that, I realized as I pulled into my apartment complex, was more than enough. It was everything. 2 years later, I stood backstage at the International Nursing Excellence Summit in Geneva, Switzerland, adjusting my burgundy blazer and taking deep breaths to calm my nerves. In 5 minutes, I would deliver the keynote, addressed to over 3,000 nursing professionals from 47 countries. The title of my talk, From Invisible to Invaluable: How Personal Transformation Creates Professional Revolution. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had once been told she was ordinary background support was now considered a leading voice in transforming global healthcare education. My trauma-informed nursing curriculum had been implemented in over 200 nursing schools across North America and Europe. And today, I would be announcing the launch of the International Institute for Compassionate Care, a research center. I would be directing that focused on training healthcare providers to see patients as whole human beings. Professor Rodriguez? A young woman with a British accent approached me nervously. I'm Sarah Williams from the Royal College of Nursing in London. I just wanted to say that your work literally saved my career. I was about to quit nursing because I felt like I was just going through the motions, but after implementing your whole-person care protocols in our pediatric unit, I remembered why I became a nurse in the first place. These conversations had become common over the past year. Nurses, doctors, and other healthcare providers from around the world reaching out to share how my approach had transformed not just their patient interactions, but their entire understanding of what it meant to heal. Thank you for sharing that with me, Sarah. That's exactly why this work matters. When we heal ourselves, we become capable of truly healing others. As I walked toward the stage, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. 3 years ago, I had been the invisible daughter eating yogurt alone in my parents' kitchen while they celebrated Emma's achievements. Now, I was about to address the largest gathering of nursing professionals in history about how embracing your own worth creates ripple effects that transform entire systems. The auditorium was massive, filled with healthcare providers who had traveled from every continent to share knowledge and best practices. As I stepped up to the podium, I could see Emma in the front row, beaming with pride. Next to her sat Dr. Chen, who had flown in from Portland to hear me speak, and in the third row, to my complete surprise, sat both of my parents. I hadn't seen them in person since that difficult conversation in their house 2 years ago. We had slowly begun rebuilding our relationship through carefully structured phone calls and family therapy sessions, but this was the first time they had made the effort to witness my professional achievements firsthand. "Good morning," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the state-of-the-art sound system. 3 years ago, I was a nurse who worked double shifts and went home to a family that saw me as ordinary. Today, I stand before you as living proof that there is no such thing as an ordinary person, only people whose extraordinary potential hasn't been recognized yet, sometimes even by themselves. The audience was attentive, but I could feel their energy shift as I continued. I want to tell you about a patient I'll never forget. Her name was Isabella, and she was 7 years old when she came to our emergency department after a severe asthma attack. By the time we stabilized her breathing, she was terrified, exhausted, and convinced that she was broken because she couldn't breathe like other kids. I paused, remembering that night clearly. The standard protocol would have been to treat her symptoms, educate her parents about asthma management, and discharge her with a follow-up appointment. But something in Isabella's eyes reminded me of my own childhood, that look of feeling fundamentally different, fundamentally less than everyone else around you. I could see people in the audience leaning forward, connecting with the story. So instead of just treating her asthma, I sat down at her eye level and asked her what she thought was the most important thing about her. She looked confused, so I tried a different approach. I asked her what she loved most in the world. Her face lit up as she told me about her pet rabbit, Snowball, and how she had taught him to come when she called his name. I spent the next 10 minutes learning about Isabella's rabbit, her favorite books, her dream of becoming a veterinarian, and her talent for drawing animals. By the end of our conversation, she wasn't a broken girl with breathing problems. She was a future veterinarian who happened to have asthma. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. When I saw Isabella for her follow-up appointment a week later, her mother told me something remarkable. Isabella had started introducing herself to new people by saying, "Hi, I'm Isabella, and I'm going to be a veterinarian who helps animals breathe better, because I know what it's like when breathing is hard." But I heard several people in the audience take sharp breaths. That 7-year-old girl had transformed her perceived weakness into her greatest strength because one healthcare provider took the time to see her as a whole person instead of just a collection of symptoms. And here's what I learned from Isabella. Our job isn't just to heal bodies. Our job is to help people remember their own wholeness. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous ovation. I waited for it to subside before continuing. But here's the thing. I could only help Isabella see her worth because I had finally learned to see my own. For 26 years, I had accepted other people's definitions of my value. I had believed that being practical made me ordinary, that working behind the scenes made me invisible, that not being the favorite made me less lovable. I looked directly at my parents as I said this, seeing my mother's eyes fill with tears. It wasn't until I stopped seeking validation from people who were determined not to give it that I could start recognizing my own extraordinary potential. And once I could see my own worth clearly, I became capable of helping others see theirs. The next hour flew by as I shared research data, implementation strategies, and success stories from healthcare systems that had adopted compassionate care protocols. But the part that seemed to resonate most deeply was when I talked about the personal transformation that had made the professional transformation possible. Change doesn't start with new policies or procedures, I said as I neared the end of my talk. Change starts when one person decides they're worthy of something better and begins acting from that place of self-worth. When healthcare providers heal their own relationships with worthiness, they become capable of creating healing environments for everyone they encounter. As I concluded my presentation, the standing ovation lasted for nearly 5 minutes. But what moved me most was seeing my father wiping tears from his eyes and my mother holding her hand over her heart. After the conference, Emma and I met our parents for dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking Lake Geneva. The conversation was tentative at first, but gradually warmed as we navigated this new territory of relating to each other as adults who had all done significant work on themselves. "Sophia," my mother said as we were finishing dessert, "I need to say something I should have said years ago. Watching you speak today, seeing how you've transformed your pain into purpose, I realized that you were never ordinary. I was just too limited in my understanding of what extraordinary looked like to recognize it in you." My father nodded. "Your mother and I have been in therapy for the past year, working on understanding our own childhood wounds and how they affected our parenting. We realized that we had unconsciously recreated patterns from our own families without questioning whether they were healthy or helpful. I grew up believing there was only room for one successful child in any family," Mom continued. "My parents constantly compared me to my sister, and I internalized the message that love was scarce and had to be earned through achievement. I passed that toxic belief onto you girls without even realizing it." Emma reached across the table and took my hand. "The beautiful thing is that you proved that belief wrong. You showed that there's room for all of us to be extraordinary in our own ways." "I have something to share too," I said, pulling out my phone. "I got a message yesterday from a nurse in South Africa who attended one of my virtual workshops. She said she had been struggling with feeling invisible in her hospital until she implemented the self-worth exercises I teach. Now she's started a support group for healthcare workers who feel undervalued, and it's spreading to other hospitals across the country." I showed them the photo she had sent, dozens of healthcare workers holding signs that read, "I see my worth and extraordinary starts here." "That's the ripple effect," I continued. "When one person decides they're worthy of being seen and valued, it gives others permission to claim their worth too. That's how individual transformation becomes systemic change." My mother looked at the photo for a long time. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see your worth, Sophia, but I'm grateful that you didn't wait for my approval to claim it." The conversation continued late into the evening, with all of us sharing stories of growth, healing, and new understanding. It felt like we were finally relating to each other, as 4 adults who had each done their own work to become better versions of themselves, rather than being trapped in old family roles and dynamics. The next morning, I was preparing to fly back to Portland when I received an unexpected call from Dr. Amanda Foster, the director of the World Health Organization's Global Nursing Initiative. "Professor Rodriguez, I was in the audience for your keynote yesterday, and I have a proposition for you. We're launching a global initiative to address the mental health crisis among healthcare workers, particularly the epidemic of burnout and compassion fatigue. After hearing your presentation, I believe your approach to healing healthcare providers, relationships with their own worth, could be a game changer." I felt my heart start racing. "What kind of initiative?" "We want to fund a 3-year research project examining how self-worth interventions for healthcare providers impact patient outcomes, job satisfaction, and systemic healthcare quality. We're talking about implementing your protocols in hospitals across 6 continents and measuring the results." I sat down hard in my hotel room chair. "Dr. Foster, that would be the largest study of its kind ever conducted." "Exactly, and we want you to lead it. The funding would be substantial, enough to establish research centers in each participating region and train hundreds of healthcare leaders in your methodologies. Are you interested?" Interested was an understatement. This was the opportunity I had dreamed of but never dared to hope for. the chance to impact healthcare on a truly global scale. I'm very interested, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. When would this begin? We'd like to launch in 6 months. That would give you time to finish your current commitments and assemble your research team. Sophia, this could revolutionize how we think about healthcare provider well-being and patient care quality. After we hung up, I sat in my hotel room, overlooking Lake Geneva, trying to process what had just happened. 3 years ago, I had been the daughter who was told she was ordinary. Now, I was being offered the opportunity to lead a global initiative that could transform healthcare for millions of people. I called Emma first. Em, you're not going to believe what just happened. Try me, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I told her about the WHO opportunity, and she screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Sophia, this is incredible. You're going to change healthcare around the world. I know, it's surreal. But Em, I want you to be part of this. The initiative includes creating healing environments in hospitals, and I can't think of anyone better to lead that component than you. Are you serious? Dead serious. Your children's hospital installations have been so successful that pediatric units across the country are requesting them. This would expand that work globally. Oh my God, yes. Absolutely yes. That evening, I called my parents to share the news. Their reaction surprised me with its depth of pride and excitement. Sophia, this is extraordinary, my father said. To think that our daughter is going to lead a global healthcare initiative, I'm so proud I can barely contain myself. Our daughter, my mother repeated softly. Both of our daughters, actually. Emma's art installations will be part of this too, right? That's the plan, I confirmed. Then both of our daughters are going to change the world, Mom said, and for the first time in my life I heard equal pride in her voice when she spoke about both Emma and me. 6 months later, I stood in my new office at the WHO headquarters in Geneva, looking out at the Alps as I prepared for the official launch of the Global Healthcare Provider Well-Being Initiative. The walls were covered with photos from healthcare, systems around the world that had already begun implementing our protocols. Nurses in Ghana celebrating their first Worth Recognition Day, doctors in rural Australia participating in self-compassion workshops, pediatric teams in Brazil using Emma's art installations to create healing environments for both patients and staff. But the photo that meant the most to me was the one on my desk. A picture of me and Emma at the WHO press conference, standing side by side as we announced our collaboration. We were both wearing confident smiles and professional attire, but what struck me most was how we were looking at each other in the photo, not as the favorite daughter and the forgotten daughter, but as two women who had found their own extraordinary paths and were now walking them together. My assistant knocked on the door. Professor Rodriguez, the research team from Japan is here for your meeting. Send them in, I said, straightening my blazer and taking a deep breath. As the team filed in, doctors, nurses, researchers, and healthcare administrators who had traveled from Tokyo to learn about implementing our protocols, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. From the girl who ate yogurt alone in her parents' kitchen, to the woman leading a global initiative to transform healthcare. From feeling invisible to being seen by healthcare professionals around the world. From being called ordinary to recognizing that there was nothing ordinary about choosing to turn your pain into purpose. Welcome, I said to the Japanese team. I'm excited to share with you how we're going to help healthcare providers around the world remember their own extraordinary worth, and how that's going to revolutionize the way we care for patients. As I began the presentation, I realized that the girl who was once told she was her parents' burden had become the world's bridge to better healthcare. The daughter who was never the favorite had become someone's favorite teacher, mentor, and leader on a global scale. And that transformation had started with one simple but revolutionary decision: to stop waiting for other people to see my worth and start building a life that reflected it instead. The ripple effects were still spreading, touching lives I would never meet, in places I might never visit. But I knew that somewhere, in a hospital room or a nursing school classroom, someone was learning to see their own extraordinary potential because I had finally learned to see mine. And that was more than enough. That was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.